Okay, so I'm gonna assume everyone knows my love for the record label Dreamville that was started by J. Cole. We're gonna assume everyone knows my how much I love what Dreamville has done for these rappers coming into this game. We're gonna assume all of that. So we're gonna talk about a rapper from that Dreamville roster, one of the most lyrical rappers I've ever heard in a while. Right? We're gonna talk about one of these rappers from Dreamville that if Cole ever passes the torch, this is probably who he's gonna pass it to, as he's mentioned in the song. Right? But we're gonna talk about that artist in a situation where I think it's rare for me to talk about these situations. And that artist, that artist on that roster, because you're like, who's on that roster that I could possibly be talking about? Yeah, from Atlanta, Georgia. He signed to Interscope. Interscope is Dreamville signed to Interscope, so we're going to talk about that. He's known for his Spill Village, Spiller Village, and he is JID. Now JID released a well JID. Let's I want to get some background. JID is a well at one point was a newer and artist that people are paying attention to more often. Now I've always heard JID stuff. I've always tried to hear his albums before, like we'll go Costa Rica or Diablo 2. Right, his EP Diablo and the other one Diablo 2. However, he released a freestyle. Now I think I have to specify freestyling off the dome. So a lot of people, not all rappers, but at one point off the dome was completely free, no verses, no nothing, just completely off the top of your head. That's why they ironically named it off the dome. However, freestyles are technically supposed to be freestyles where they're any lyrics you have written down. Any lyrics you have written down, he might not have them written down, but any where you have them written down and you're just rapping about it, right? And I think I just wanted to clarify that because I think this episode and another episode I'm gonna probably have to specify, especially when I talk about freestyles. So JID released a freestyle called 29, and 29 could really refer to anything, especially dealing with JID, right? Because roughly, I think he is in his 30s. So 29 is either, a year that he liked or just a freestyle that came to mind. And I think listening to JID for these couple of years that he's like, because my first listen to him was Diablo 2. Diablo and Diablo 2. It's definitely gonna be a freestyle where I don't think a lot of people are gonna pay attention to it. But I just want to talk about this freestyle a little bit. But real quick, let's see if we have any sponsors, and I'll get right into the freestyle.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Okay, so I think it's always good to specify that this 29 freestyle is it's a weird one because he drops a lot of names, and it's a weird thing because there are a lot of references in here that majority of people probably will not understand just because they're not really interested in the sport. So I'm gonna relate some of these, and it's probably gonna sound like I'm going on a tangent, but I'm not really. I'm just trying to break these down in the best way I know, which is kind of a weird thing to me because the introduction is just a bunch of woo. Like he's just trying to boost the atmosphere in the room. It's not necessarily just him by himself. In the track you can hear, like in the backtrack you can hear other people. But he says, hard times still ahead and behind, and I don't want I ride or die and release the Rondo. As in, I'm never gonna give up without, trying my best. Because that's what Rondo did. Rondo always tried to be as best of a player as he could. Now, this is a weird thing because a lot of artists have said it. I'm qualified, but I never made $1 off of Spotify. Now I'm lying. I probably made 5. Which, okay, we can talk about that, and it's a weird thing to talk about, right? Because a lot of artists have said that Spotify did not pay them enough money, enough money, or they didn't make enough money off of Spotify as if they were doing like CD sales back in the days when you used to go to the store and physically buy an album. Like a good place to look at that would be like Lauryn Hill's album, Misunderstood, right? That if you look at the CD sales for that number is probably amazing. It's probably a high number, but a lot of streaming services don't. But it's more relatable to like the YouTube thing where YouTube pays you after you get like a certain amount of subscribers. They pay you every so often off the subscribers, and I think that's when he says that he's just kind of. I think that's what he's referring it to, and I think that's the best way to explain it. Is a YouTuber subscriber, YouTubers either CDs or YouTubers depending on which side of the scale you're on. But I think that's the best way to relate it because I don't think there are like game sales. You relate to game sales, but a lot of people aren't like into gaming as a hobby or anything, or look at sales numbers. I know people that look at gaming sales numbers, but that's not necessarily. But he's like, I probably made $5 for every 1,000 streams or whatever. Because a lot of people stream music, but a lot of people still don't stream music. That's why vinyls make a lot of money. So off that tangent. He said Willie and Giants. I think that's clear. He says kamikaze, cool, killing the mood. I think so kamikaze became a term for pilots, and I don't know if he's saying that because of like the action, or he's saying that because Eminem made an album called Kamikaze. And it's killing the mood. So I think that's why it was when I heard it the first time. I thought it was relating to Eminem. You When I Survive, well, every girl so-called wants a thug until they touch the line. I think, and that's a weird thing. It's like that bad that persona where a bunch of women, girls, or overall they just want bad boys or whatever, and that could work to a T. But then you get in really sticky situations. And a lot of people, even the guys, cannot handle the situation that they end up putting themselves in by hanging around bad influences or something like that. Now, I'm not saying everyone was raised different, and so there are certain things that certain people can do and certain people can't. But he says, because when I touch the line, it's suicide. So I'm going fully in, no matter what the consequences is. I'm going fully in. And that could sometimes lead to dying. So, it's a weird thing. I'm all-star, aligned, lightweight, a lightweight, wasting my time, and it's weird because I think a lot of people when they get like to that fame, they're like, well, I'm already broken the mainstream a little bit, so I already got too much shame. So I got too much fame. So anybody below me or anybody that hasn't broken mainstream, I shouldn't respond to. And that's how a lot of rap diss tracks have gone. So it's a weird thing. He says long lineage, legacy, legend in his prime, like Dion at HBCU, Coach Young Khan. So if you don't know, Dion, I think he's related to Deion Sanders. That is Jackson State. He's very vocal about contracts that he wants players to sign, and that people should come to HBCUs, right? So he's totally driven that way, and I get that. So he's roughly Deion Sanders is basically he's still in his prime and he's still making good players and signing great players. I think it was a contract where he signed somebody for X millions of dollars, right, to come play at I think it's Jackson State. I believe it is Jackson State. I think that's where he's at now. But I think that's a very weird thing because a lot of people aren't into it. So when he says it, I'm like, I get it, but I don't know how many other people get it. Blindside, I look out for yours, and you look out for me. So I always have your back if you have mine, which I think is a clever line to say. He talks about shaking it like it's for the 2009 in 1999. So I don't know. So I think this is his way of saying, like, that old saying of party like it's 1999, right? Or the early 2000s where we had that unannounced like YMCMB, or that if you're here for the 2000s, that kind of line where everyone knew it, the beat or the line, everyone knew it, and everybody would always party for the 2000s, and I think that's where he gets it from. He says, I'm backing the thing up like Juvenile, which Juvenile was on YMCMB. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I know he's on Dreamville, and I know he might have been influenced by, of course, J. Cole, right? But I think it's so weird to hear it, like that Juvenile line, because a lot of people overlooked Juvenile and knew that Juvenile was on YMCMB. So I think that's what he's saying when he says it. Rhyme line for line, like Juvenile rhymed line from line to line to line to line, but he just wasn't. He wasn't popular. Like, he wasn't popular during the time in the early 2000s. And he says, crack them like Michael Myers at my door. I'm gonna take them one by one out at my door. If they get closer to my door, I'm gonna take them out. Which is okay. I mean, always protect yourself. I will say that. But I think overall, I think that's he just goes from line to line. He just talks about people getting older or they're dying because they're being put in boxes, which I think is which I've heard rappers say before, but I think this freestyle is a little weird for me because I don't think this was his best freestyle by far. I don't think it was. It's definitely a weird song to me because in one of these lines he talks about a dope fiend, and I think we can pull up in a Rover, feet on top, right? Like, we can sit on top of the Rover and just relax. But it's a weird thing, right? Like this, because he says I'm working like I'm Kobe too, and this isn't a bad freestyle, but I think because it's JID, I'm so critical of it. Like, it's not a terrible freestyle, right? Like, so it's not a terrible freestyle. I see where the points are connecting, and I know people are gonna say, well, if you freestyle, you don't really have time to think about the lyrics, and the lyrics just are what you can think of and rhyme to it. And yeah, that's true. That is true. I don't really have an opinion on this freestyle. It's just kind of a freestyle where JID is freestyling, but I think he can always get better at it because he says he was going through the mud, and he's gonna pay you back in blood, right? Which I think, I don't know if JID, I don't think it's confirmed that he has any beef with any rappers, but it's definitely a weird thing to hear. But it's, as I said, it's a freestyle, so people normally talk stuff and talk about real stuff that are happening to them in a freestyle. So I can't really rate this freestyle, but this freestyle, it's an okay freestyle. I just figured I need to connect the lines for a few people because some of these will go over your head. Like, their lyric is okay, but what is the deeper meaning behind it? And I think that's he doesn't have as many. It's just kind of him having fun, and I think that's my thing. I think JID is so lyrical that this kind of just is like, It's an okay freestyle, but it's not like it's not what I thought it was gonna be from JID. So overall, it's okay. It's just I think he could do it better as a freestyler.